worked the front desk at a hotel for almost 3 years, mostly night shifts. If you've ever worked nights anywhere, you know how strange time feels when everyone else is asleep. Hours stretch out, small sounds feel louder, and your brain starts filling in gaps you didn't even know were there. Out of all the shifts I worked, New Year's Eve was the one everyone tried to avoid. Not because it was busy, but because it was awkward. Guests either came back drunk and loud, or they didn't come back at all. By midnight, the hotel usually felt abandoned. That year, I didn't have a choice. I was scheduled from 10 at night until 6 in the morning. No holiday pay, no backup, just me and one security guard who stayed in his office unless something went wrong. The hotel itself wasn't fancy. It was an older building just off the highway. The kind people stayed in for a night and forgot about the next day. 3 floors, long carpeted hallways, dim yellow lighting that never felt bright enough no matter how many bulbs we replaced. By the time I clocked in, it was already cold outside, the kind of cold where the air feels sharp when you breathe it in. I remember brushing snow off my shoes before stepping behind the desk and already counting down the hours until morning. The lobby was quiet, too quiet for a holiday night. There was a TV mounted on the wall behind the seating area, playing some New Year's Eve special at low volume. Confetti graphics, smiling hosts, none of it matched how empty the room felt. I did what I always did at the start of a shift. Logged into the system, checked arrivals. 3 rooms still unoccupied, which meant maybe one more late check-in if we were unlucky. By 11 o'clock, nothing had happened. No phone calls, no guests coming in drunk, no noise complaints. Even the elevator hadn't moved in a while. I poured myself a cup of coffee and leaned back in the chair, watching the minutes crawl by on the computer screen. That was when I started thinking it might actually be an easy night. Looking back, that's probably what makes everything else stick with me so clearly. My guard was completely down. The hotel had a reputation among staff for being uncomfortable at night. Not haunted, at least not officially, but there were stories people joked about during slow shifts, mostly about certain rooms no one liked being assigned to clean. One in particular, on the 3rd floor near the end of the hallway. Room 317. Housekeeping hated it. They always said it felt colder than the other rooms. Maintenance claimed the thermostat worked fine. Management brushed it off as superstition. I never paid much attention to it. I worked nights, I didn't clean rooms, and I definitely didn't believe in ghosts. At around 11:45, I stood up to stretch and walked over to the glass doors at the front of the lobby. Outside, I could already see flashes of light in the distance, early fireworks. Somewhere in the city, people were already celebrating. When I turned back toward the desk, the automatic doors behind me slid open. I hadn't heard a car pull up. I assumed it was someone stepping out for a smoke, but when I looked up, there was a family standing just inside the entrance. They hadn't made a sound. There were 3 of them, a man, a woman, and a young child, maybe 6 or 7 years old. The man stepped forward first. He was tall, thin, wearing a dark coat that looked heavier than what most people wore that night. He smiled politely, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Checking in," he said. His voice was calm, almost too calm. I glanced at the clock on the wall behind him. 11:55 p.m. "Sure," I said, pulling up the reservation screen. "Last name?" He told me, and I typed it in. Nothing came up. "No problem," I said. "We do have rooms available." The woman stood slightly behind him, one hand resting on the child's shoulder. She hadn't looked at me once. Her eyes were fixed on the lobby like she was studying it. The furniture, the lights, the TV playing in the corner. The child was staring straight at me, not smiling, not fidgeting, just watching. Kids stare sometimes, so I tried not to think too much about it, but there was something about how still he was. No blinking, no shifting his weight, just standing there, eyes locked on my face. "How many nights?" I asked. "Just one," the man said. I nodded and started entering the information. As I did, I noticed something small but strange. Their clothes looked outdated. Not dirty, not worn out, just old-fashioned. The man's coat had a cut I hadn't really seen before. The woman's shoes looked like something from another decade. It wasn't enough to call out, just enough to feel off. When I asked for payment, the man reached into his pocket and placed cash on the counter. Exact amount. No card, no hesitation. That alone wasn't unusual, but combined with everything else, it made me pause for half a second longer than normal. As I counted the bills, the sound of fireworks outside suddenly grew louder. Midnight was almost here. The TV behind them started a countdown graphic. 10, 9. I looked up instinctively, expecting some reaction from the family. A smile, a glance at the screen, anything. None of them moved. The child's eyes never left me. I handed the man the key cards and told him the room number, 317. The moment I said it, I felt a small knot form in my stomach. I hadn't even thought about it when assigning the room. The system had auto-selected it. The man nodded, thanked me, and turned toward the elevator. As they walked away, I noticed something else. Their footsteps made almost no sound on the lobby floor. I could see them moving, but it felt like the sound was delayed or muted. The elevator doors opened and they stepped inside together. Fireworks exploded outside, bright flashes lighting up the lobby windows. Happy New Year! The elevator doors slid closed. I waited for the usual things after midnight. The sound of celebration echoing through the building, guests coming back, phones ringing. None of that happened. The lobby stayed exactly the same. The fireworks faded. The TV moved on to commercials. The clock ticked past 12:05. I stared at the elevator indicator behind the desk. It showed the car stopping on the third floor. Then nothing. No movement, no calls, no noise. Just silence. And for the first time that night, I had the uncomfortable feeling that the rest of my shift was not going to be easy. I tried to ignore that feeling. That was the rule I'd learned working nights. If you acknowledged the fear, it grew teeth. So I sat back down behind the desk, straightened the stack of papers that didn't need straightening, and stared at the computer screen without really seeing it. The lobby felt wrong. Not empty, hollow. The light from the overhead fixtures didn't reach as far as it had earlier. Shadows pooled in corners where shadows shouldn't exist. The TV continued playing quietly, but the laughter from the audience sounded warped, stretched thin like it was echoing through a long tunnel. I checked the clock. 12:14 a.m. 14 minutes since midnight. The elevator indicator remained dark. I told myself that meant nothing. Elevators stop all the time. People go to their rooms and stay there. That's what hotels are for. Still, my eyes kept drifting back to that unlit panel. At 12:21, the temperature dropped again. Not gradually, instantly. The light from the overhead fixtures didn't reach as far as it had earlier. Shadows pooled in corners where shadows shouldn't exist. The TV continued playing quietly, but the laughter from the audience sounded warped, stretched thin like it was echoing through a long tunnel. I checked the clock. 12:14 a.m. Second, I was uncomfortable. The next, my skin prickled like I'd stepped into a freezer. I rubbed my hands together and breathed into them, watching faint clouds form in front of my mouth. "That's not possible," I muttered. I checked the thermostat beneath the desk. 72 degrees. I leaned down and touched the vent with my fingers. Cold air poured out. Not cool, cold. I pulled my jacket tighter and sat up just as the sound reached me. A thump. Soft, distant, from above. I froze. Another sound followed it. A dragging noise. Slow, uneven. like something heavy being pulled across carpet. My heart started pounding hard enough that I felt it in my throat. "It's just someone moving luggage," I whispered, even though I didn't believe it. The sound stopped. Silence rushed back in, thicker than before. I waited. Seconds passed. Then knock, knock, knock. Not on the desk, not on the lobby doors, from somewhere deep inside the building. 3 knocks, slow, deliberate. My hands trembled as I stood up. "Hello?" I called. My voice echoed back wrong, stretched and distorted. The phone rang. I jumped so hard the chair skidded backward. I stared at the display. 317. My finger hovered over the button. For a moment, I considered letting it ring. I didn't. "Front desk," I said. There was breathing on the other end. Wet, shallow, like someone trying not to cry. "I think something's in here," a woman whispered. My blood ran cold. "In where?" I asked, even though I already knew. "The room," she said. "It's watching us." I swallowed hard. "Ma'am, can you tell me what's going on?" The breathing hitched. "My son won't stop staring at the corner," she said. "He says there's a man standing there." A sharp chill crawled up my spine. Is anyone else in the room?" I asked. "Yes," she said. A pause. "Too many people." The line crackled violently. "Ma'am," I said, "can you see anyone?" "No," she whispered, "but they can see us." A child's voice cut in suddenly, so close to the receiver it made my ear ache. "He's behind you." The call disconnected. The lobby lights flickered. Once, twice, then steadied. I turned slowly. Nothing was there, but the feeling didn't go away. I called security immediately. He answered, annoyed. "What?" he said. "I need you to go to room 317, I said. "Now." There was a pause. "Why that room?" he asked. "Please," I said, "just go." He sighed. "Fine, but if this is a prank..." The line went dead. I watched the elevator indicator light up as he stepped inside. First floor, second, third. The number stayed lit. Minutes passed. 5, 10. I tried his radio. Nothing. At 12:53, the sound came back. Footsteps. In the lobby. Slow, bare feet. I stared toward the hallway leading to the rooms. "Security?" I called weakly. The footsteps stopped. Then something else moved. The elevator indicator flickered. It showed 3, then 2, then 1. The elevator dinged. The doors slid open. No one was inside, but the floor of the elevator was soaked. Dark footprints led out onto the lobby carpet. Small ones, bare. They stopped directly in front of the desk. The phone rang again. 317. I didn't answer. The ringing continued, louder, sharper, until the sound felt like it was drilling into my skull. Finally, I picked it up. "We're stuck," the man said calmly. "We've always been stuck." The lights went out. Not flickered, out. In the darkness, I heard dozens of voices whispering all at once, counting, laughing, crying. And somewhere close to my ear, a child whispered, "You let us in." If you ever stay in a quiet hotel on New Year's Eve and the lobby feels colder than it should, don't take the 3rd floor room at the end of the hall, because once the door closes, the night doesn't end. It just checks you in. The emergency lights came on with a wet pop, bathing the lobby in a dull red glow that made everything look flayed and raw. Shadows stretched too long across the carpet, bending around corners, crawling up the walls like they were looking for a place to grip. The TV still hummed with static, but beneath it I heard something else. Breathing, layered and uneven, like the building itself had lungs. The phone in my hand was warm, not from use, from skin. I set it back into the cradle. It rang immediately. I flinched hard enough to bruise my ribs against the desk. The display didn't show a room number this time. It read no service, the letters flickering as if they were being typed by an unsteady hand. "I can't help you," I whispered into the empty lobby. "Please." The ringing stopped. So did everything else. The silence pressed in, thick and heavy, until my ears rang with it. Then the elevator dinged. I didn't want to look. I did anyway. The doors slid open slowly, complaining the whole way, and the security guard stood inside. His uniform clung to him like wet paper. His head hung forward, chin nearly touching his chest. Water pooled around his boots, spreading across the elevator floor in dark, reflective shapes that moved when they shouldn't. "Hey," I said, my voice barely working. "Are you—" He lifted his head. One eye was wrong, clouded, swollen, staring through me instead of at me. His mouth opened, stretching too far at the corners. "Front desk," he said in my voice. "We have a guest waiting." Something shifted behind him. The air inside the elevator bulged like bodies pressing against a curtain. The lights went out. When they came back, the elevator was empty. The guard was gone, the water was gone. So was the exit. Where the front doors had been was a hallway, long, narrow, and carpeted in the same ugly pattern as the third floor. The lights above it flickered in a slow rhythm like a pulse. At the far end stood a single door. 317. I stepped back, but the carpet squelched under my shoes. I looked down. Bare footprints were appearing in front of me, one by one, wet, small, walking backward, toward me. A child giggled right behind my ear. "New guest," dozens of voices whispered together, close enough that I felt breath on my neck. The lights came on one after another, forcing my eyes forward, dragging my attention step by step until there was nowhere left to look but the door. My back pressed against something solid, warm, yielding. Not a wall. A hand slid into mine and squeezed. My fingers curled around the doorknob without permission. It pulsed under my palm, alive and eager. "Just 5 minutes," a woman murmured, her lips brushing my cheek. "That's all it takes." The door opened. Inside was the lobby. Perfect, clean, bright. The desk, the TV, the elevator.